Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our discussion on the environment, dealing specifically with plastics and styrofoam. But the discussion will be a general discussion on the environment, but as I say, with specific emphasis on styrofoam and plastics. We want to welcome the Mayor, Cliff Sergeant, Mr. Bristol Lawrence, Mr. Senville. Bristol Lawrence is from Dominica Solid Waste, General Jacob Dominica Solid Waste. Senville is environmental health. You are in all the time talking about chikungunya. The Portsmouth Community Watch started about 5-6 years ago with an emphasis on trying to do things in the town. Now, we have key members here from the watch, like Jennifer Jeffers, who in her other role runs the Lamb's Feast, which does feeding for children and elderly. Joyette have a lot of other stuff doing. Drainon, young guy, just got married, so I like to say, yeah. But in his other role, Drainon does the Inside Posse and the Children of Grace Foundation, which runs a program for getting scholarships for or funding for young children or underprivileged children. And basically, Drainon does that on his own. There's nobody really prompting him. He go around, does his thing every September, pick up money and help his children, and hopefully that will see his children get away from crime and be very good citizens. We have gotten more and more involved in plastics, and plastics have become, it was very, very good and very popular, but right now we're realizing years and years later that it's becoming a scourge. You use a plastic now, like styrofoam or some of the PET bottles that we use for Coke or whatever it is, water. And years later, 600 years later, that plastic is still out there in the environment. And if you go down to, let's say, certain parts of the Atlantic Ocean, certain parts of the Pacific Ocean, you will see a wide expanse of plastics floating out there. And you cannot just go there for a big net and scoop it out because it are broken down into very minute particles. So going out there and trying to scoop it out, it doesn't make sense. But the only way, what we can do right now is stop the continuous throwing of plastics on the ground. Now, when the tour guides go up the Indian River, that's what they do for their living. They always pass in plastic bottles floating down. And we have tried all kinds of schemes to block it from going down the river. But you know, once there's a lot of rain, it goes over the drain and ends up in the river. But in the first place, there should be no plastics in the drain. If you use a plastic bottle, put it in a garbage bin and get rid of it, there's no need for you to throw it in the drain for it to end up in the river. And even though you don't throw it in the drain, if you throw it in the pack, once rain falls, the pack flooded, the plastic will float down into the river. So all those things that we have to stop doing. We have to start changing our ways on plastics. First of all, we have to use less. We really need, before little boy, everybody had a pie Pepsi, going to shop right now, it's plastic bags, you use them, when you finish you throw them out there. They end up in the sea, they end up on the beach. And they end up in our bodies too, because after they break down into minute particles, we call that microplastics. The fish eat it and we end up eating the fish, so it's a big cycle. So don't think that when you throw the plastics out there, it's not going to come back to you, it's going to come back to you. So what we are saying now, we didn't know that years ago, but now we know it, we should change our ways. And I hope that our program here, sponsored by the Jeff Small Grants and other groups, will enlighten people to start changing their ways in the plastics business. Now, we have been trying to enlighten people for a while right now. In fact, we run a basketball league here, 4 months, and the name of the league was the No Styrofoam Basketball League. So everybody here in that, but when you go during the games, you've seen people use a ice pop and they throw the plastic down, you know. And so even then, I think people get the message, but the habits haven't changed yet. So we hope that we can change the habits. We have spoken to the schools, we have spoken in smaller groups. Even at Ross right now, we are working with Ross because what Ross is saying that they don't want any non-biodegradable plastics on the campus. So hopefully, if Ross continue that position, we can get that to filter down, because if you have a business and you want to sell to Ross and Ross won't buy from you because you're using plastics, hopefully the tongue will start following suit.
And we have plastics, we have styrofoam. You clean in an area where persons may have dumped styrofoams 10 years ago and you still see the cup in its proper shape and form. So we have to bag it properly, send it off to solid waste so that they can recycle or whatever they do with it. And if they're bags for recycling, because I was just saying before, I remember going to the shop and my grandmother used to put our shopping in the box. When we buy shopping, I still remember my grandmother saying, no, one bag, what are you doing with two? I kind of have the bad habit, I want 2 bags, and now I'm happy that you get in the training that you're thinking, well, when I go home with 6 bags, what are you going to do with it? So we have to think of all these things. We go to KFC, what we doing with the box? What we really going home to do with the box? We buy a Coke, do we just dash it on the side of the street and just leave it there? For who? We picked up 40 garbage bags, jumbo bags of garbage on the bushes there at the Indian River, and that's what we could manage to pick up. That's what we could just pick up. I mean, it would probably take a grader to take everything out of there, and 40. And if we go back there today, we'll probably meet 100. That just cannot be real. And it's not the town council or community watch or solid waste or environmental health to do a better job. You know, we have to do a better job. We have to decide in ourselves, how are we going to dispose of all that garbage? So what we can compost, we compost. What we cannot compost, we put in proper bag. But I want to say to the people of Portsmouth, let us stand up and let us do something. Let us stand up for the great Portsmouth that we speak about. Let us really make Portsmouth mean something. So in order to do that, we have to do something. And we have to follow some of the tips that we've been given tonight as to how to dispose of garbage and what types of bags to use. And yes, ask businesses to have biodegradable stuff. And when you, the people, decide, the businesses and everybody will follow.
We have to change our ways. And I hope that the mayor, we have a draft for anti-litter ordinance bylaw in the town. I hope the town itself, if Dominica don't do nothing, that we can be a model in Dominica.
All right, and the less waste we have is the less waste we have to manage, the less expense for us. So before you buy something, you think. All right? You don't buy stuff with, let's say you're in Portsmouth and you want a pound of sugar. Go into the shop to buy a pound of sugar 10 times. It's maybe more profitable for you to buy a quarter bag sugar and you reduce on the packaging material, because sometimes when you go and buy 1 pound of sugar, they still give you another plastic bag to put it in. And then you end up with 2 plastic bags, and the first thing you have to do with the 2 plastic bags is to put it in your garbage, and on the day of collection you put it by the road for solid waste to pick up. And if you can buy your quarter bag of sugar, most times it comes with a paper bag, which is better, and you save because you buy it in bulk. You save on your time and your trip and your energy to go to the shop and waste time 10 times or 20 times, and you reduce the amount of plastic bags that you would have carried in from the supermarket with all those strips. So reduce is one of the pillars of the free house. The other one is reuse, and this is something that is not new, although in recent times people don't reuse things. They buy one and they throw the container away. Back in the days, people will use their pails to store water. They will use their pails to maybe store their peas or their rice, or do something else with it. They will use a drum to put as a garbage bin. They would use a jerry can to store water in the refrigerator. Nowadays, we're in an age where you might just go to the supermarket, buy a bottle of water, and after you just discard of that bottle, and solid waste have to pick it up. All right, so reusing is a form of reducing, and we encourage everyone to reuse. We can do all that, but if our people are not responsible, if they do not separate the waste when we ask them to separate the waste, they still throw everything back in one garbage bag, one bin, we're going to have the same problem, and it will give us more work to separate at the landfill. And landfill space is very, very important because the landfill is filling up. And I'm sure that we do not want a landfill close to Portsmouth, so when the landfill in Rose are full up, we have to look for another space to create another landfill. So the more we can reduce, reuse, recycle, it saves the space that we have to dispose of the other type of waste that we cannot do nothing with, like the Pampers and some other waste that we really cannot do anything with.
We want people to understand that if we keep the tongue a certain way, more people will visit the tongue and it will be a good livelihood for us. So it's not something we're doing just because we want to do it. It's good for our health, but it's also good for our pockets too.
Our mothers, our fathers, grandmothers, what they used to do before with the banana peels, the dashing peels, you know, they used to take it and place it outside in the backyard, underneath a banana tree, underneath the yam or the breadfruit tree, build a mound, a tunnel yam, as it's called it, yam babaoli, the common local yam. And they start by January, May, they would say M-A-Y, May, Y-A-M, yam. So May time, they would plant the yam. And then come Christmas, you send a little child at the back of the house to shake up the yam mound and pull out a nice long babaoli yam. Right? And that yam would be cola. You know what cola means? Huh? Yeah, like dumpling, right? So instead of buying flour, which is white flour from overseas, which I mean is not so good for our bodies, we eat the locally produced yam, all right? And also dashing and banana, which would be organic and good for our health. We are all hearing about the genetically modified organisms, right? Where they go to the lab, and if you buy the broiler fowls, in less than 3 months, you have a big fowl, all right? And the Conkers and the KFCs. So what we are trying to do in solid waste, and solid waste is not just solid waste on its own. We also work with our parent, our parent organization, our ministry is the Ministry of Health, and our sister organization is the Environmental Health Department. They are the monitoring arm, they monitor solid waste, and we are the collection arm. But we all work together, and solid waste is not only responsible for the collection of garbage, but whatever we do also hinges on your health, the health of our country, to ensure that our country, our citizens are healthy, to ensure the environmental integrity or the well-being of Dominica, to continue to sell Dominica as the ecotourism base. Thus, we are encouraging our people to compost. And composting for the corporation is important in 3 important ways. First of all, we have built a landfill which was commissioned in 2006, and that landfill was meant to last for 15 years. But presently we're seeing that we have just maybe 5 or 6 years of space remaining on that landfill. And as the general manager mentioned to you a while ago, I don't think you want a landfill in Portsmouth. I don't want one in Granby. All right? I don't think people in Rose or anywhere want one there also. But it is up to us to ensure that we lessen the load which comes to the landfill, and the majority or the greater amount of waste which comes to the landfill is compostable, can rot, can stay in our backyards, can go back to the garden, can be fed to our pigs, to our dogs, can be given to our neighbors to feed the animals. The chicken skin, the fish gut can be refrigerated or given to your neighbor, to your friend who has a pit bull or cat to feed his animal, right? Why should all that waste, about 45% of the waste which comes from Portsmouth or other areas of Dominica, some areas in Dominica, why should that volume of waste come to the landfill? When we look at it, that waste should stay in our backyards. But we would like to see young people, young men, form a group and work with the Portsmouth Town Council, work with solid waste, work with your organization, collect the compostable material, the banana peels, the grass which is cut occasionally by the roadside, and take it to a location and generate compost from that site, where you can sell to farmers as to feed to the plants, to ensure that the plants are healthy and organically grown, can be used for creating potted plants, which again can be sold to hotels, all right, to the Ross University. So this is in itself is an income earner, composting.
When school reopened, I informed them, including the teachers, that we are going to separate our waste. We are going to put all the tins, all the plastics in one container, and the paper, we are going to take it to compost, not to burn, but to compost, because many people do not know that paper can compost. Yes, if you take paper and you take what brokers is throwing in the barber shop to solid waste, that is compost that goes back into the garden and to produce the kind of foods that we really used to enjoy. I have advocated all my years. I'm a teacher, but at the end of the day I do some agriculture at home, and I use very little chemical fertilizers. I use composted material. I make sure I told solid waste already that I do not give them any of the tins. I bore holes in the tins, put them in the ground, and provide myself with the zinc that I require for the soil. I also, when it comes to the plastic, I give them the plastic and the bottles.
It's a crime to litter. All of us throw and voltige and fly and fling, but what we forget is that when we voltige, fly and fling, everything that we have, that we break in the law. As a matter of fact, you can go to jail for littering. And what really is litter? Litter means anything whatsoever, including rubbish, oddments, leavings, coconut shells, cigarette ends, bottles, whether empty or not, derelict vehicles, dead animal or carrion. So according to the Litter Act of 1990, that's what litter means. So litter is actually anything that is not supposed to be placed where you place it. If you place something that is not supposed to be placed there, it becomes litter. Litter has been criminalized by the Litter Act of 1990. It establishes that indiscriminate disposal of anything is a criminal offense. It's a crime if you just throw your stuff any and everywhere. It establishes fines and penalties for littering and indiscriminate disposal of waste material. So the mayor mentioned that a heap of garbage by the cemetery and people throwing their stuff on the savannah and it washes down into the river. You, as a matter of fact, you are committing an offense by doing that. Although some of the speakers spoke about recycling, but I need to speak about the criminal activity as it relates to litter. Any person who throws down, drops or otherwise leaves any litter in onto a public place, in such circumstances that it causes the defacement of the public place, commits an offense. So for example, if you take this is a public place. Instead of disposing of the thing in a bin, you throw it outside of the window. You throw it into a public place, so it becomes a criminal offense. Any person who throws, drops or otherwise, or leaves litter on a premises occupied by another person without that person's permission.
For garbage collection, there are days assigned to collect the garbage, and people usually bring out the garbage on the day that is assigned. If the garbage truck doesn't pass for some reason or the other, what will the people do? Will they actually take it on their own, take that garbage back to their homes, where it came from, and wait when the truck will be there? Right? They have been happening over and over. And there's no certainty that if the truck is supposed to pass on Wednesday and did not pass, that we're going to take the garbage back and bring it on tomorrow. Who tells that the truck is going to come tomorrow? Yeah, there's the uncertainty in that. So we leave the garbage out at the designated areas that we usually put it after we leave our homes. And the truck that will pass afterwards. If it's 2 weeks after, the garbage remains 2 weeks after. So that needs to be put in place as well. Yeah? Right. Adding to that, there are designated areas where people put out garbage for collection. And it is left in the open, and if it is not picked up on a given day, it stays out to the cats and dogs and other people as well. Yeah? What has been happening in my community, for example, there have been some small sheds where you put the garbage in and it's closed in. That if the truck doesn't pass for a week, the garbage remains safe and sound inside of that shed until the truck passes to collect. So I'm just sharing all of that we can take from it and see how well we actually address the situation of the garbage.
What I'm saying is that if we have that strategic approach to waste management, there would not be a need for you to take back the garbage on the day if the truck doesn't pass. The truck would pass, and it would be so mechanistic that you would not even think that there's a truck passing. You'd put it at that time and it's removed at that time. These are some of the things that they're talking about. So we're not trying to lay blame on anybody, and we're not trying to say, but we do not have, we have not taken to address littering and waste management utilizing that approach in our country. You understand? Because solid waste has their limitations, and the community have its limitations, and all of us have our limitations. And you said something about the park. What if it rains soon after you leave the park with all that litter? Where does the litter end up? The water level rises in the park, flows into the drain, down that big Rodney Street drain there. Though if the drain has a lot of water, it overflows onto the sides, so some of it remains in the swamp and some of it gets into the river. And the riverbed continues to rise because that settles in the riverbed and it continues to rise. And in one of these days, and ladies and gentlemen, in Portsmouth, one of these days, the Indian River will disappear. It may not happen in some of us lifetime, but one of these days it will disappear. So we have to be extremely careful. We have to have that long-term objective and that aim so that we can prevent those things from happening.
Definitely. Did they ever pay tax? Pay for the garbage thing to pass and pay the tax that the garbage could pass. How do you say in English?
Yes. Do you pay money for garbage? The collection of garbage? That's what you're asking, right?
Yes.
Yes, the tax.
And then they have the garbage and it's all about.
I know.
And definitely they don't pay nothing. And they want garbage to pass.
One of the things we want to say that I went to Canada maybe last year it was, I started speaking to some people up there about plastic bags and the program that we have to deal with getting rid of plastic bag or reducing plastics and getting rid of styrofoam. And as I started discussing it with them, I realized we had a plastic problem, a styrofoam problem, but our bigger problem was a littering problem. Until we solve the littering problem, we're not going to solve the other problem. So that's why we more or less merge what we are doing and say that we need to deal with the litter question. Now, one of the things that we want to do tonight is, if you look around, you will see various bags. It's a bag conceived and designed, I think, by Joyette and Jennifer, with the logo, green up logo on it. There are a lot of stuff at the back there. The glasses, they are biodegradable. In fact, the cups you get, the juice you get, everything you get is biodegradable. So when you get that plastic glass, the plastic glass will be biodegradable. So when it falls down, about 3 months after it will disappear, because it's made out of corn starch, and the plates are made out of bagasse, which is cane skin. Okay. So that's what we are saying, that let us move into that direction. Not that we should litter, not because you have biodegradable containers that you should litter. But at least if you litter, we know that if you come back there 6 months from now, we wouldn't see it.
Frederick Etienne from Portsmouth, Indian River. On Indian River, we have a little problem with the garbage, and it's a big problem. Normally when the tourists come, they keep talking about that a lot, and we like to see it get a little, I would say, we want to get it a little much cleaner so that when the tourists come, they can't see no plastic on the river, because it's an impact on the tour guides, and they've been talking about it And when we're on the river with the people them, we don't want to see no plastic really on the river because it's creating impact on us and the environment. That in the near future, this river could be dried up, and there you can't row up the river anymore. So that we would like to look into that. We would like to look into that so that we can get that in a better, perspective for the young men and women of Portsmouth.
I'm Ted Rapport from Portsmouth. I need the people and them to keep the place clean and the environment. We have a sickness now running the place. We need for our children and our elders and our children, the elderlies and the young folks that are getting pregnant and get their baby in their stomach to carry. And we don't want their baby to die. And we also don't want our children and grandchildren and great-grand to die. So we need to keep our place clean. And as you can see, Portsmouth is a beautiful place. And when it's clean, it is clean and green and beautiful. So I need the people of Portsmouth to come out in large numbers now, even though it's on a Saturday, for us to clean. All me myself, I can help. I already in the park. If I get more support and more help to keep the environment clean, as you can see, I am the paper and I am on the calendar of 2014. Everybody can see me on the calendar for sure. So I need the people to come out in large numbers, bigger numbers, and the more help we get, it is good for our country and our children. And let the people of Portsmouth see that we change. And also overseas can see us. Anything now is internet. Internet, they're talking. So if they see us on the internet and they say, wow, Portsmouth get beautiful, Portsmouth change, also around my area, I'm going to speak to my neighbors for us to clean. I can borrow them rakes, I can get more bags. We can also go by the bayside. We can go on the streets and on our area, we can keep them clean. Thank you very much.
This message brought to you by the Portsmouth Community Watch Foundation Inc. and sponsored by Jeff Small Grants Program.